We are live. Welcome to another Wednesday chat. I still haven't figured out a name for these get-togethers that I've started, but I'm really excited about them. Really excited for today also. So if you're new to my world, my name is Mireille Thériault. I go by Mireille Nicole in my relationship coaching practice. I have like my certificate now out and about. I'm so excited. And today we're going to do a chat about this whole question or this whole idea, is love a choice, right? I don't know if you've heard this before, but this is something I heard quite a few years ago, and it really shaped my perspective for a period of time in my relationship, in my love life. And actually, I was on a podcast that aired this last February called Wine Dine in 69. And Rachel, the host, asked me that exact question. Do you think love is a choice? And I thought it would be fun to hop on here today and talk a bit more about that. Because I think so far, that's been the whole point, right, of these chats, is just more sharing my opinion. If you want a lot more how-to stuff when it comes to relationships, make sure to check out my YouTube channel. That's where I have all those more practical videos and on my feed here also. But today I just want to share a bit more of my opinion on that question, my personal experience, so that it can also help you perhaps, right, in your own love life, determining how this saying or this quote or this perception or this idea, how that plays out for you, right? And what do you want to do with this information? So just to give you a bit of background. So actually, no. First and foremost, I'm going to skip right to it, right to the punchline. I have to say, I think the whole idea of love being a choice is the most unromantic thing ever. I have to say, I am one of those huge romantics. So everything I do, everything I post here, everything I coach on comes from that perspective that obviously I'm a relationship coach, right? So I love love. I'm obsessed with it. To the point where, like, if you'll recommend a movie to me or a book or a TV show, the first thing I'll say is there a love story in there? Like, there has to be a love story of some sort in there, or zombies. That's the new exception. So it's either about love or it's about zombies, or ideally it's about both. But all that to say that I'm a huge romantic. So to me, the whole idea of love being a choice just was never felt really romantic to me. It always felt very rational brain, very practical, right? Making a choice, making a decision. And I do think that does play a role in love and in relationships, but I have a bit of a twist on it. So I'm going to share exactly how I see that fitting into the whole relationship and love equation. So I'm going to talk all about that. But just to give you some background now. So I was first introduced to this whole concept, let's call it, of love being a choice in my early 20s. I had a friend back then, and she was in a relationship, and there were challenges like in any relationship. And I remember her telling me that her older sister had said to her, love is a choice. There's a lot of people out there that you can love, but at the end of the day, you choose someone. And in that moment, that stuck with me for some reason. Like, I didn't know in that moment how to process that exactly, but it's something that was always in the back of my mind, dating throughout my 20s and even beyond that, right? Just in terms of my perception of love and what it should be and what I should be looking for and what I should be expecting. So that's how it came about. And for some reason, your friends and people will tell you stuff all the time. Some things will just really land and really stick with you. But I guess being obsessed with love, I was really fascinated by this perspective. So I kept it with me to kind of see how it would work out for me. And so I really carried that in the back of my mind, even though I grew up, like I shared in my love journey, I grew up really having this idea of how I wanted love to feel and what I wanted it to be like for me. That is really like a pivotal moment in my life that I remember hearing that. And like I said, it really influenced my perception, some of my decisions also moving forward in love from that point in time when I heard that. So the first thing, like I said, I'll say is that I think that's the most, nowadays, looking back, I do feel like that's kind of an unromantic thing to say, just coming from the perspective of a huge romantic. So here's what my take on this whole question or concept, right? So what I believe that love is a feeling, first and foremost. And you'll see how this whole love is a choice plays into that after. But first and foremost, for me, love is a feeling. And you might hear me say that and say, Mireille, that's what you're feeling, that whole feeling, right? That's lust. That's what people will say all the time, that if you're feeling all, the goosebumps, the butterflies, that's lust, that goes away. That's just in the beginning of a relationship, right? So my response to that is that there are more feelings than just lust, right? So when I say love is a feeling, I'm not necessarily saying that love has to be lust, right? The feeling is whatever you're going to see as important to you. It's going to be based on what you value, what you desire in a relationship. Your feelings could be different. They might not be, about lust at all. Maybe the feeling, the love feeling that you are looking for is more related to safety and security and comfort and feeling like, that comfort and that safety, that security in your relationship. And that's where you're going to equate more with the feeling of love. Maybe for you, it's more that feeling of love you're looking for is companionship, having someone there with you, not being lonely, having someone to have fun with. And that, again, those are feelings, not necessarily the feeling of lust that people categorize that as soon as we say, love is a feeling and those feelings of love, we often jump to that whole idea of lust. But love to me is a feeling, whatever that feeling is to you, whatever you desire to be, whatever you dreamed that it would be as a little girl growing up. It could even be a combination of feelings. Like obviously, I'm going to want feelings of safety and security in my love life also. But for me, for example, it's going to be less important because I feel really safe in myself. I feel really safe, financially, emotionally. So whether or not someone else fills that role or not for me, like to add to my life, it doesn't really matter so much to me, right? I don't value it as much because it's something I can give myself. Same thing with companionship. I'm an only child. I've learned how to, keep myself company, entertain myself, and be happy on my own since the day I was born, pretty much. So that is not something so much I look for in a relationship. For me, like I said, for me, it was always the butterflies, the goosebumps, the feeling head over heels in love, right? Like I can't get that from myself. That is something that I see as an add-on from someone else. So some sort of, extra cherry on top to the relationship or to my life, having that relationship that provides that. So for me, that was always super important. And for me, that's something that's hard to choose, right? It doesn't fit in that equation. How do you choose that? Not everyone's going to provide that to me. So it's not so much about choice as it is to discover and find that person or attract that person, magnetize them, however you see that, right, in your world. So where I do see the whole idea of choice come in is going to be when we're talking about commitment. So, right, choice, commitment is the choice that you're going to make in your love life or in your relationship. And this is actually a huge one. So they did a research study, and I can give you the link if you're interested, if you like, to double check, fact check those things. So they did some research and they found that, so they did research with divorced couples, and they asked these divorced couples, what was the reason, the number one reason, or they had to rate the reasons they got divorced. And anyways, the number one reason that they got divorce in 73% of the time, the number one reason given by these participants or these divorced couples, the reason for their breakup, their divorce, was the lack of commitment. So you can see that commitment is a huge one. And for me, that is where the choice comes in, right? It's going to be a lot harder to kind of choose your feelings. But when it comes to making that decision of making it work, choice, I think it's going to be huge. Now, I feel like choice and feeling are going to be influenced by this third part to how I see love and relationships and whatnot. And that is that for me, your happily ever after is a skill. So if we just recap this quickly to make sure it makes sense in your head. So number one, love is a feeling, in my opinion. Commitment is a choice, in my opinion. And thirdly, your happily ever after, your fairy tale ending, however you want to call it, is going to be a skill. This is where all the relational intelligence, emotional intelligence, your ability to communicate, to negotiate, to assert yourself, that's where that all plays in, right? So this is more the aspect of the tools. That's going to be the other factor in it. So that other saying actually, right, is love enough? Or that's another question. Is love enough? Love is not enough? Kind of that whole idea. I totally get that. And that kind of plays into these three kind of this framework I have for love, right? So for me, no, love, I would agree with that one. I would say, yeah, love is not enough. It takes the choice, the commitment, and it's going to take the skills also beyond that love. Because this is where, when it comes to the skills and the tools, those can influence. So the lack of skills, the lack of your actions, your behaviors in the relationship can affect your feelings, and they can affect your decision whether or not to stay or go in your relationship. So this is going to be this third part is huge in just kind of cementing everything together and holding it all together. So a lot of times women struggle in determining what to do in their love lives, or they lose their feelings. They don't feel the same way anymore. The honeymoon phase fades away. A lot of times that can be explained by the lack of skills in the relationship in terms of the dynamic between you and your man, your boyfriend, your husband, your partner, or whatnot, right? That's going to be influenced by this aspect of it. And I feel like this is an area where so many women wing it, and I did that for like a number of years, right? I'll be the first to admit that I thought that I would figure out love all by myself, and I would just take the advice from, the Hollywood movies and all my friends and just look at what's going on, what everyone else is doing and try to figure it out for myself. And I have to say, I'm willing to bet, had I not worked on this area of my life, I would not be married to my dream man right now. There is no way. It's when I started realizing this kind of framework I just shared with you, right? This is what really allowed me to turn things around when things were getting really challenging in my relationship. I knew I had the feelings there. I was committed to the relationship, but we were just struggling with the skills. And the more and more I was resisting working on this aspect of my relationship and the skills and my behaviors and my role in the dynamic between the two of us, the more the feelings were getting harder to see, and the decision was kind of like, uh-oh, what am I doing, right? So I think this is super overlooked, and that's what really gets me excited to work on this part. So maybe it's not the most glamorous because it doesn't touch so much on, the whole goosebumps and butterflies, but it's all related, like I said, right? So once you work on this aspect of it, everything else, if it's meant to be, obviously it's all gonna come back. So super, it's just super important aspect of the relationship to not overlook. And that's a lot of the work that I do with women, right? Is to help to work on these skills, to develop them. And some people will say, well, Mireille, I know a lot of people who, they don't get support in their love life, and their love life is fine, and they're happily married for like 50, 60, 75 years, whatever the number is. But the one thing to understand too is that some of us will have grown up with, certain role models, or experiencing certain experiences in love, or seeing certain things, or understanding concepts that will benefit us in our love lives, and maybe will make it so that, we're doing those tools unconsciously, without intention behind it, because we don't have it. We've already adopted these behaviors and these skills that really work well in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, right? And some of us will be shaped by experiences in our lives, or in our dating life, that make it so that we don't have these same tools or these same skills. So I think the most empowering approach, I can't talk today, this is the second time I say a word that empowering. I think that's wrong, but I'm French, so I'm just going to blame it on being French. Anyways, you know what I'm saying, but the most, I have to say it again, empowering stance is to learn these skills, whether it's going great, whether it's not going great, and to do it, as early as you can too. Like I said, I think it was in the last chat, it took me like 3 years to really hit my rock bottom in my dream relationship to figure out, hey, I should probably, brush up on a few skills and really understand, what men want. By the way, I have something coming soon about that, but it took a while. So the faster you can learn these skills, the less you're impacting the feelings, the more sure you are about what decision to make, and it just all works perfectly from there, right? Not perfectly, there's no such thing as perfect, but you know what I mean, right? It works all magically from there. So that is my take on, is love a choice? So just to recap, number 1, love is a feeling. Number 2, love, commitment is a choice. Love is a feeling, commitment is the choice, and your happily ever after just lies on the skills and the behaviors and the actions, and you taking on, taking ownership of your role in the relationship and really understanding men. So I hope this was useful. I hope it was helpful. I am curious to know what your opinion is. What do you think about love? Is it a choice? Is it not? Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree? Hey, let's start a conversation on this. Let me know in the comments. And at any time, if you want any support with this, if you have any questions, reach out to me in the DMs. I am happy to see if and how I can help you, and we'll just go from there. So have a wonderful Wednesday, and I will see you guys next week.